Hey guys, this is Vanilla Gaming, and today we are going to be fixing my NES along with my Game Genie. Now the issue is I was playing some Tetris, and I noticed that the screen was getting kind of glitchy. Now what I thought that meant was a bad connection from the cartridge to the NES, and it was super random, couldn't get any repeatable results. Tried it without the Game Genie. It didn't do anything, but also when it was doing it with the Game Genie, it was being a bit spotty. So I don't know. I'm just gonna take apart the Game Genie and the NES, and then we're gonna fix them. So I'm gonna start with the NES, and what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna clean the pin connector, or like the 72 pin cartridge connector. I'll do that again. Clean the 72 pin cartridge connector, and then just clean off the motherboard, make sure there's no corrosion and such. And then same thing with the Game Genie. So let's get into it. Now for the NES, there's just 6 Phillips head screws. So you just need a Phillips head screwdriver, and super simple to take apart. Now this is where you're probably going to want a magnetic tip screwdriver. I do not have one. Actually, I might. Hold on. Somewhere over here. Here, I think I have a magnetic tip screwdriver. And it definitely is. I just don't want to lift out anyway, so. Yeah, okay, well, that sucks. I guess I'm just gonna have to catch the screws, but now, if this was any other NES, I would normally lift pin 4 on the lockout chip to make it unregion locked, but I already have another NES that is that has that done, and I don't want to do that on 2 because I think there are a very select few games that won't work if you have the lockout chip disabled. So yeah, now I have the fun part of trying to get these screws out without losing them. So I don't know how I'm going to do this, but so I got 2. 3. The 4th. 5th one, and drop the last one, but I got it. Okay. So this is the inside of the NES. Yeah. So already noticing some shit on the board right here. There's like dust or something. Don't quite know, but I'm gonna clean it off with some rubbing alcohol and a toothbrush. So, okay. Now, one thing to note is that all of these screws should be the same, except for the 2 screws on the bottom of this front. Right here, there are 2 screws. Those ones are 2 of them that are different, and there's 2 on the back of the cartridge, on the thing here, the cartridge slot, that are different. Other than that, you can just mix them all together. And it's pretty obvious which ones are different too, so you don't really have to worry about keeping them separate. So you just gotta remove all the screws around here to get the shielding off. Now, if I remember correctly, the last time I took this apart, which was a few years ago now, this board and RF modulator look pretty much spotless. But it's been a couple years, and the pin connector's kind of not really. It's kind of giving me a bit of trouble, so I'm gonna just clean it up, and then I'm gonna bend the pins up. And I can't find a real small screwdriver to do that with, so if I can't do that, I think I have another pin connector that I can put in here as well. And then I'm also there was some like dirt and stuff on the outside that I'm just gonna clean it up with some rubbing alcohol. Is that all of them? Yes, that is. Okay. So now we've got this shield off. I'm gonna set that aside. So now we have the slot, whatever, the tray. And again, I believe it's one of these two. I'll have to see which, but one of them is longer than the other. I'm going to say it's probably the silver screws right there. Yeah, see, that screw's a bit longer than the others. Alright, so now we have the cartridge thing, tray or whatever, out of there. So now it's just a matter of these two screws on the RF modulator. You just gotta take those out, and then the board should lift out. Then you have all the controller connectors and stuff. But just gotta take those out, and then that's gonna be pretty difficult. I might just take that out once the board's out. Yeah, I dropped it. Okay. So now the board should lift out, but I'm gonna have to try and disconnect these controller connectors and stuff. And then the connector for the power thing. Power button and reset button and LED. This one was always the worst. It's like a really tight fit. There we are. Okay. So now we have the board out. We can set this aside. So now you have this metal shielding that should just lift off like that. And then this pin connector should just slide off like that. Alright, so now here's the board. You can't really see it very well because this camera's a piece of shit, but maybe up here you'll be able to see it a bit better. Focus. Damn it. Okay. Well, can't really see it very well, but it's pretty clean. Not noticing anything really bad about it, except on the corner over here where it was more exposed. There's some dust and crap. And maybe some sort of liquid? Or maybe some sort of something is there. Then I'm noticing some excess flux on these really big, the really big connectors for the RF modulator. They have like all the blobs of solder for extra support. There's some extra flux there, and then the other side is looking pretty clean as well. It's really shiny too. So really good. Probably the best NES board I've seen. But let's take off this RF modulator. Now this is a bit weird because like I've seen a few different, because there's a few different RF modulator things I've seen. One of them has like a little circle or something, and then this one says, I don't know if you can, probably can't. No, camera's too shit. Maybe right there. That's, I don't think I've seen that before. That says ALPS, ALPS on both sides. That's weird, and this thing is really shiny. Makes me wonder if it hasn't been replaced, but I don't know if that makes sense because I don't know if they ever made replacements. Now this cover should slip off, and I want to get a good look inside there as well. Yeah, this cover should slip off with some effort. Really difficult to do. Oh, did I get it? I don't got it. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So then there's the inside of the RF modulator, and of course they do have this capacitor and all the components on the other side, but I have to desolder all that, and I really don't want to. So yeah, that's the RF modulator. I'm noticing there is some excess flux on parts of the board, so that's probably not going to hurt anything, but I'm going to clean it off. And then, I don't know, it really makes me think someone did some work to this, because right here, there's like someone did some soldering, but the solder doesn't flow all the way around the pin, and I'm probably not going to touch that, because it's most likely fine, it's just kind of weird. And that looks like that is a pin for, I don't know what, but yeah, it looks like some soldering has been done in this RF modulator, especially considering this voltage regulator right here has some flux there. I think someone's been in here before. Huh. It's a 1987. I want to say the other NES boards I had were later. They were made in like 90 something or late 80s. Anyway, that's enough talking. I'm going to get to cleaning it off. So the first thing that I'm going to do, and the thing that anybody should do who has an NES that doesn't work very well or at all, is you got this pin connector. Now right here is where right here is where all the cartridge goes in. Wait, yeah, right, no. Right, okay, I was right the first time. Looking like this, the one that goes out further is where the cartridge goes in. Like right here. And if you get a cartridge, it slips in like this, and then it goes down. Like it slips in, and then you push it down, and what happens when you push it down is it pushes those pins down. Excuse me. But which by itself wouldn't be an issue, but if you factor in also a bunch of dirt that gets in there, that means that you don't get a good connection. So what you do is you clean this out, and then you bend the pins back up. Now I don't know if I have anything to bend the pins back up right now. I have brought this knife out, and I don't think it is gonna work for me here, but kind of go in there and you bend the pins up, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it here, but basically in this pin connector you'd get something like a flathead screwdriver or something, and you go to each individual one and you bend them up, and yeah, then it should work. I'm not going to do that here, mainly because it already works. I'm noticing they're a bit dirty and I don't need to, so I'm just going to take my toothbrush and I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol. I'm going to clean that up. So we got some 91% rubbing alcohol. That is not the right way to pour that, but it works. God, I'm just gonna let this drip on the board because I'm gonna clean it off anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna just go in here and brush it. And then I'm also gonna brush in here because I'm already here, but yeah, I'm just gonna brush it and clean it off. Now that should be most of what you, or I guess you didn't see that, but yeah, just go in here with a toothbrush and just clean it, and that should get it to work. You know, use some rubbing alcohol. If you use soap and water or something like that, or something that's, you know, water-based rather than alcohol, be sure that it gets all cleaned up. And I wouldn't suggest using like WD-40 or anything like that, because why would you? But yeah, just make sure it, get it clean. That should fix it up. Now the next thing is I'm gonna clean off this board because in spots it's a bit dirty, so I'm just gonna wipe it off. You don't really need to do this. I'm just doing it because I'm here and there's some visual glitches going on. So I'm thinking that maybe some flux could have caused that, or you know, it's probably just a bad connection, but you can never be too sure. I can get some more. I'm just gonna twist off the end of this and stick the toothbrush in there. But yeah, I'm just gonna put some more alcohol in here. I'm gonna wipe it all up and scrub it down. Now, if you guys are doing this and it's got like, if you're doing it on a side of the board where you have stuff soldered to, say, a resistor or something, don't use a brush for it because you will knock off a resistor or something. But this is on the back side where it's on a old and simple motherboard where, you know, it's just solder connection, so it's fine to do this. Okay, so this looks pretty clean. I'm also going to clean the other side of this, of the thing where the cartridge connector goes to. But yeah, just clean it off like this. So now we'll do the back side of this RF modulator, and what I'm seeing here is that there is resistors here. So I'm just going to be careful and only clean out the spots where there's no resistors and there's flux. And it looks like these resistors are soldered a lot better than they would be, like soldered a lot more sturdier on here than they would be in modern electronics, and it looks like they're a bit bigger, so I'm not very worried about it in this instance, but I've seen stuff like this get knocked off, and I think I've even done it myself where I've knocked off a resistor and then you have to go into resoldering it, and it's a pain in the ass because it's so small. So it's best to just avoid it, but yeah, I'm just gonna kind of clean it off here. And I think I'm just gonna let this dry. I don't know. I don't know if you can do another pass on that RF modulator because there's still a bunch of like burnt flux. All right. So now I think we're good on the NES side of things. Although I'm gonna blow out all this rubbing alcohol, and if you're ever gonna blow out rubbing alcohol like this, be sure to never get anything in your eyes because I've done it before and it's not that fun. So just gonna make sure that there's no loose rubbing alcohol on here because that's not good for the stuff to have like wet spots of rubbing alcohol and then it'll short stuff out, and that's not good. But I know I'm violating my own rules here, but it'll be fine. Now I'm just going to dry it off with my clothes here because I have a towel on hand. But yeah, I'm thinking that should be good. Alright, so make sure that the board itself is dry, and it is. And I think we are good. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so Now I'm going to figure out the correct orientation for this. The shield right here, which I think would be this way. We're just gonna pop this back on. Gotta really align it. This is one of the more annoying things, and I'd suggest if you're not having issues, don't take it off. But I did for the sake of the video, and I just wanted to clean it. So just snaps back on like so. And next, I'm gonna leave this apart while I tackle the Game Genie. So this Game Genie, it just uses Phillips head screwdrivers. They're pretty small, or Phillips head screws, and there are 4 screw holes under the label. I just took off this one to make sure it was a Phillips bit, so I knew I had the correct screwdriver. But yeah, I'll show you here. There are 4 holes. Now I think this is the issue, so which is why I'm taking it apart. I think I need to clean everything inside. So there are 4 holes, like one right here, 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 and here. 4 screws. So I'm just gonna unscrew them. Now I've never actually taken one of these apart or seen a teardown, so I'm just kind of winging it here, but it's 80s or 90s electronics. I mean, it's fairly simple. It shouldn't be that bad. So, whoops. And these are being kind of difficult to screw out, so I don't know why. I suppose I've never taken it apart before, so, and no one's ever taken it apart considering the label is still intact. But it wasn't working very well, so now it should. Okay, I'm gonna do that again. It should just lift off. And it looks like it's just inside, it's just a board on, yeah, just a board with pin connectors. So, and that just lifts out like that, and here's the Game Genie, the inside of a Game Genie. And this also looks pretty immaculate, but I'm thinking that the pin connector right here is probably going to be dirty. So, time to do the same thing, where I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol on my toothbrush. I'm just going to let that drip on my pants. Probably shouldn't do that, but whatever. And I'm just going to do the same thing, put my toothbrush in here and clean it up. I hope this goes without saying, but do not actually use your toothbrush to brush your teeth afterwards. That's just, no good things are going to happen from that. So, just going to clean this up while we're here. And then, yeah, I'm just going to clean up just all the, where any solder flux would be, and just clean it up. So, and then if you're wondering how this would go in an actual, or it would go something like this, and this goes in either way, so I don't actually know which way it's supposed to go when it's inside of an NES, but I believe it would be this way. So what ends up happening is it ends up going in at about like that, but because it's extra long, you don't actually push it down. It ends up sitting right about here. So Game Genies probably also don't work as well compared to other things, but yeah, should work. So, and yeah, see it slots. I didn't have it slotted in all the way, but yeah, based on the angle, it kind of like slots in there and it makes a firm fit. So, yeah, it should be good now. So now I'm gonna reassemble everything. Take the cartridge. Yeah, it'd be like this. That wouldn't be. It's not upside down, is it? Might be. That is definitely not upside down. Oh, and it looks like two of the screw holes actually keeping the. Okay, so it goes in like, I'm kind of having a brain fry here, but it looks like it'd go in like that. And then, yeah, okay. It's confusing there for a second, but yeah, it goes in like that, and then these two screws are what keep in the handle, so you can actually get it out of the NES. So we're gonna screw it back in, and just so I know I'm doing this right, I'm gonna make sure that this board can't be flipped around without, like, it won't fit in right side up or upside down. No, it won't. Okay. Because I know you can insert it. You can, if you have no handle, you can insert this upside down, but at least I believe you can. But I don't want to test that. So now we can screw this back up after it's been cleaned, and then we'll move back on to reassembling the NES. Looks like we've been going for 26 minutes here. Alright, so now we can take our screwdriver and just screw all of the screws back in. Now go until they stop moving, don't just force them, because then you will strip out the hole, because these are plastic, so they're not that sturdy. So if you really force it, you will strip out the screw holes, and then you won't really, that screw won't really be doing much, so keep that in mind. These screws are kind of a pain in the ass. But that should be the Game Genie fixed. Now we can move on to the NES. So to reassemble it, first I'm going to put the pin connector, the pin cartridge connector on. Remember, the pin connector always faces up on the flatter side of the board without the chips on it. So actually, I wonder what kind of. Anyway, yeah, all this always sticks up on the flat side. So then I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slip the cartridge slot thing in, because it's simpler to get in outside of the NES. But I'm also going to put this shielding on. That's the first thing I'm going to do, because it's kind of a pain, because you got to line this up with this cartridge connector that was never used. And yeah, okay, there you are. There we are. It just kind of slips on. It's a lot more difficult if you didn't disconnect your connectors first, which I used to do in the past. But yeah. So then, like I said, I will put my slot back on, and I'll take this screw out. Make sure you don't have any loose screws in here. Then I'm going to put it back in. Alright, so that is in. Now I'm going to plug in my wires. Now, one thing that always kind of confused me is I didn't know which one of these two controller connectors were player 1 and player 2. Remember, the front-facing one is player 1 and the side-facing one is player 2. But I'm actually going to lift the board back out so I can connect all these connectors, because it's going to be easier like that. But I'm going to slot in these controller connectors. And they are keyed one way, so they only go in one way. Do not force them in the opposite way. Be sure to check that. Then I have the power button, reset button, LED thing, that in now. And I made the mistake I said not to make of putting the wires in before the board. But it looks like I can just unplug these two. Use the other. Yeah, it looks like I can just do this. Make sure the board. Yeah, okay, so then you gotta slot it into the bottom. The other thing is on the bottom, make sure that like the things that go up against the expansion port connector, make sure that those don't end up in the actual thing. I've had that happen before, and I caught it before I turned it on. I really wouldn't know what would happen, but I can't imagine it would be good. So, because basically what that would be doing is, well, it might not matter actually, because it'd be shorting out the extra pins on the cartridge that are not used, but I wouldn't risk it, because I'm assuming there are some other connectors that don't go directly to the unused pins on the cartridge, so just avoid it. Make sure that your shielding is on correctly. And if things don't line up, double check that. But yeah, now I've got those connectors plugged in, making sure that all my wires aren't gonna be pinched in between any screws. Make sure everything lines up. Looks like I'm still caught up on something. There should be a little, yeah, there's a little guiding thing here that should be going into it. It's not for some reason. Why is it not doing that? Yeah, it's like it's not. Make sure my wires aren't in the way. But yeah, it's like it's not going. Okay, there. Gotta make sure that these little guiding things are in right here and then right over here. So, yeah, now we can start re-screwing in our board. Now, one mistake I've made is all of the screws on the top go in after this shielding is on, but then these two on the side by the RF modulator do not. So this just on. This just goes on here. Now, if you're doing this for yourselves, one thing I've made the mistake of is after you unplug your NES, always hit the power button, because there's a little bit of energy stored in the capacitors. And I've been taking the shield off, and I've shorted out some pins here, and it didn't end up doing any damage, but it definitely could, so watch out for that. But I'm just going to put these two in first, because I know they're going to be the most difficult. I'm going to put the two on the RF modulator in first. And you're looking at my hair. Okay. Yeah. These are kind of a pain just because you gotta guide them in. Like, gotta put them in with your fingers and there's like no room. Okay, I got them both. This is another thing that would be easier if you had a magnetic screwdriver. I guess I do have that other one, but they're both in now, so. And the other thing I just noticed I forgot is I still have those screws for the thing right here. the cartridge slot. Okay, so it's the two longer ones that go in on the middle. So right here and right here are where the long screws go. Alright, now from here on out, all of the screws are going to be the same, so don't worry about not putting them in the right spot. Alright, so yeah, the ones that hold on the cartridge slot, the spring-loaded thingy, those ones don't go in before that shield. So keep that in mind. But, so I've got this. I'm gonna screw this in. Again, make sure that you don't strip out the hole. Don't over-tighten anything. Okay, so now we're coming up to, now we're gonna screw these in. And one thing that I've seen that I've had happen in the past is sometimes if you screw this thing, this cartridge port, this cartridge slot thing in weirdly, sometimes, like if you do it, I don't even know what caused it, but sometimes it won't spring back up once you put it down. So you might have it installed wrong, you might have some screws too tight if you do that, but I don't know what causes it, honestly. And it's kind of random on which NESs do it and which NESs don't. But just something to look out for, because I've put an NES all the way back together and then I can't get the cartridge out because the ports installed, or the slots installed incorrectly. But it looks like this one works. So, now we can put this shielding back on, and we put the top cover back on. Then I will hook this up to the capture card and show that it works. The other thing is, don't try, like if you're putting a screw in, don't screw it in sideways, because that will also screw up the hole, and then the screw won't be able to get tight. And it's called cross-threading, and you don't want to do that because it's not fun. And if you ever start working on cars or some industrial stuff like that, you know how much of a pain in the ass cross-threading shit is. But here, if you have one screw that doesn't get tight, it's really not that big of an issue. Just leave it loose and then nothing really ever comes of it. Like my other NES, the case is really beaten up, and then I used one size smaller screw, and a bunch of the screw holes are screwed up, but I mean, it doesn't matter because NES is not getting that hard of usage. But looks like you just gotta screw in the rest of this, and looks like I have 2 more screws here. Okay, so now I have to put the top back on, so I gotta separate my screws from the top of this here that I'm using as a holder. And I am missing a screw. Oh, shit. Well, that sucks, but it's also possible that the last time I took it apart, I was missing a screw, so I'm not going to worry about it. Again, it's not that big of a deal. It's just holding some plastic together on a stationary video game console. So, I'm just going to do the same thing, screw all this in. Now, one thing I will point out is I've seen people that are apprehensive about fixing their NESs. Now, I've never understood that because, like I said, you need some rubbing alcohol, a toothbrush, and a standard Phillips head screwdriver to take it apart. And the other thing, it's really easy. This is a raw recording, and we're about 42 minutes in, and that's with me pausing to talk and fixing a Game Genie while we're at it. So they're really not that hard to fix. And of course you can always do the pin 4 lift on the lockout chip, where you basically cut or desolder or just break off a pin on one of the chips inside the NES, and then what happens is that stops like the blinking light where it resets the game like once a second or whatever, and then when you do that you can play European or PAL games on NTSC and vice versa and stuff. So, and the games will just play, like it'll be easy to read the games. But like I said, I'm not doing that on this one because I'm not doing that because some games, I want to say some games won't work if you do that. God, I'm just being really slow and I dropped the screw. Where the hell is it? Hold on. There it is, okay. Found my screw. Alright, so as I was saying, yeah, some games won't work if you lift the lockout chip, I think, so I'm not going to do it, or lift one of those pins, but okay, now I'm going to make sure that I know which ones don't have things in them. Okay, so I'm going to put the last screw in. I'm missing one screw. I'm going to put the last one right here as opposed to right here because I don't know, it's just what I'm deciding to do. So now, after I get the screw tight, we are done, and that's how you fix an NES, and I'd say 99% of the time. I've had one NES with a dead chip that I couldn't fix, but other than that, they all just need a good cleaning. So that's it. It's 45 minutes from start to finish while explaining. But the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm noticing you guys might not be able to tell, but there's some dirt on the top of this, so I'm just going to take some rubbing alcohol and clean that off. One thing is, don't get rubbing alcohol on any of the lettering, because that will screw up the lettering, like the ink that they use or whatever. So if you're doing this, be careful not to get it on like the lettering. But on the top, it is fine. I should also have done this while it was apart so I don't get any rubbing alcohol inside of it, but it's fine. And also not do a super thorough job. So I think that's just gonna be it. Just put the thing back on my rubbing alcohol, and I will be back on the capture card to show you that this works. Alright, back on the capture card, and I'm going to show you guys that this in fact worked. I put it in and plugged it in, put the cartridge in, and it worked. So, of course with the NES you always kind of got to fiddle with it, but yeah, it worked. So I'm just going to enter my codes here. Well, this is awkward. Hold on. Alright, now it should work, so I'm just going to put in my codes here. And it seems to be working. So just go into a game and play. Bugs or any flickering or anything like I was seeing before, so it seems to have worked. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like. Yeah, that should be it. So bye.